Let's go. 5 o'clock, and welcome everybody to the October 22 meeting of the COA Committee of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission. My name is Nick Fountain. I'm the chair. And you have arrived at the place where the rubber meets the road in historic preservation in Raleigh, North Carolina. At this time, we'll ask staff to call the roll, and we'll note the absences and the like, and then we'll move to the next step.
Nick Fountain.
Here.
Fache Height.
Here.
Harold Millett.
Here.
Janine McAuliffe is excused. John Reese.
Here.
Ian Dunn.
Here.
All right, thank you. We have a quorum, and in addition to those folks, you will, if you're watching the screen, you'll see Francis Raspberry, who is counsel to the body. Before I go on to next steps, though, there are a few things I want to be sure that I put on the record, and those of you who've been watching the last several months will have heard all these things every month. But first of all, we're conducting this meeting consistent with Session Law 2020-3 of the North Carolina General Assembly, which is allowing us to have remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during the current declaration of emergency. Everyone on the agenda today was notified that the meeting would be conducted using this remote electronic platform. Every applicant has consented to the committee conducting the hearing that way. And if there's any objection to a matter proceeding on this remote platform, that matter will be continued. Thirdly, notice was provided to the applicants and the public well beyond the requirements. Specifically, there have been notices, signs placed on each of the properties, which everyone has seen if they've been looking. And there have been letters to everyone within 100 feet, and everyone's been told to advise immediately if there's an objection to moving ahead. There's nothing on the agenda today where the city's been advised that there is a problem with proceeding in using this remote format. Besides that, notice has been posted on the sites and in the newspaper and on the city's website. Anybody wanting to participate today was supposed to sign up ahead of time, and information on the sign up was included with the various mail notices and links to the website, and those links were in all the signage, etc. So, and everyone was supposed to turn in any material that we were being asked to look at in advance, so that it could all be provided to us and all be posted online in the board docs document format for the city of Raleigh prior to the meeting, so that anyone during the meeting who wants to look at the material can go on raleighnc.gov/agendas and get on the RHDC COA committee and track down that material. Finally, everyone who expects to speak was sent an oath form before the meeting, and they were all asked to sign and return the form prior to the meeting. we will also for everybody in as we go along through all this. So now, with regard to the next steps in this process, I will ask each member of the committee to introduce themselves, and I will start off by introducing myself. I'm Nick Fountain. I'm a lawyer in Raleigh. I live in a Raleigh historic landmark. And those are the reasons that I've been appointed by the city to the RHDC. Who would like to go next? Ian, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Ian Dunn. I'm a Raleigh historian, and I work with the State Archives of North Carolina.
And Vershay Height?
Hi, I'm Vershay Height. I am a resident and also licensed architect in North Carolina and living in Raleigh. And I also work for a firm in downtown Raleigh.
John Reese?
Hi, my name is John Reese. I am an architect, and I live in the Glenwood, Brooklyn section of Raleigh in that historic district.
And Harold Millett?
Hello, I'm Harold Millett. I'm an architecture designer, and I work for a firm in Raleigh.
Okay, and then I'll ask staff, starting with Tanya Tully, to introduce herself and the other folks who are listening in whose faces may not appear on the screen.
Hello, Tanya Tully, Senior Historic Preservation Planner.
And Colette?
Hello, everyone. Colette here. I am a preservation planner.
And Aaron Morton.
Hello, I'm Erin Morton. I'm a preservation planner for the city of Raleigh.
Okay, the next thing we're to do is to note that there were 6 minor works last month, and I'm then going to look at the summary proceedings and explain that process to you, after which we'll approve the agenda. So the summary proceedings.
Nick?
Yes.
Nick, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Are you? Okay.
Oh, that's better.
All right. I'll probably cover the mic with paper. Summary proceedings are matters that are perceived to be routine, but as to which action by the full committee is required. And we will propose to proceed with those matters summarily unless someone on the line or someone on the committee believes that we should hear the matter as a full hearing rather than summarily. Is there anyone who wishes that the matter of 608 South Boylan Avenue, the applicant's Courtney Whalen, that matter be handled other than by a summary proceeding?
Tanya Tully here to say no one signed up in opposition or to request that it be pulled.
All right, thank you for that. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda of today's meeting. And John Reese makes that motion, and Vershay Height seconds the motion. Any question, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Okay, that passed unanimously. The next matter is approval of the minutes, September 24, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Everybody had a chance to review them. Vershay Height moves to approve the minutes. John Reese seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. All right, that motion carries unanimously. We're now ready to move to 608 South Boylan, the first matter, which is the summary proceeding referenced a little bit ago. That's a matter about installation of a 6-foot fence in rear portions of the property. I would entertain a motion that the staff comments be received as the findings of fact, and the COA be approved consistent with the recommendations of staff. Can I have that motion? John Reese makes the motion. There's a second to that motion. Ian Dunn seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your hand. The motion carries unanimously. And thank you. Move ahead, and we'll move to evidentiary hearings.
Mr. Fountain,
Yes,
just real quick, there's no one on the line for the case, but just a reminder that case was deferred by the applicant. And I just wanted to say so in case anybody is watching this live out in YouTube land, so they don't hang on till that case comes up.
Yes, that's exactly right. The rest of us were made aware that the case 131-2020, which is 616 Wills Forest, the applicant was Mr. Patel, that matter has been deferred at the request of the applicant, and so our meeting has been shortened to the tune of one proceeding. And so thanks for reminding me of that, Tanya, in case there was somebody listening. Then the first matter to be heard now is 316 East Cabarrus Street. That is file number 130-2020. Applicant Zach Hoffman for In Situ Studios. That matter was considered to some degree last month. At this point, I'd ask that everyone who expects to talk about that matter be sworn, and that you indicate affirmatively, since I can't see all of you. And those persons are Aaron Morton, Richard Barnes, and Zach Hoffman. And so I ask, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give and the matter being heard will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Aaron Morton?
I do.
Richard Barnes?
I do.
Zach Hoffman?
I do.
All right, thanks to all of you. And with that, Aaron, would you please explain the proposal, and in particular, weave together a little bit of where we are in comparison to last month?
Sure. So this case came before you all last month and was deferred until this month. In the interim, this application has attended a meeting of the Design Review Advisory Committee remotely on October 12th. Due to the timing of that DRAC meeting, there were no additional revisions made beyond the group of revisions provided post last month's meeting. So there is a new staff report accompanying a series of revisions provided by the applicant in response to last month's staff report. And then there are a series of new information provided this month in response to additional staff comments and DRAC comments, which have not been incorporated into the new staff report. So this case is COA 130-2020 for 316 East Cabarrus Street in the Prince Hall Historic District. The work request is to construct a rear addition, raise the existing structure, install new windows and door, and alter window opening, remove a chimney, install rear fence, construct rear site wall, change exterior paint color, replace siding, install skylights, and parge foundation. This is a view of the existing structure from East Cabarrus Street. This is a view of the west property line side elevation. This is a view of the front and east elevations of the existing structure. And this is a view of a piece of the rear of the original house. And the L addition, this is an early addition, and what you're seeing are the remnants of a 1950s addition that was removed by a previous owner prior to this application. Next. And a view of the rear lot where you can see the significant grading changes that we'll be discussing tonight. Next. So staff suggestion is to discuss the following: irreparability of all historic wood siding, bold contrasting finish colors on the addition, relationship of solids to voids in the new addition, the monolithic treatment of the addition's gable ends, extensive regrading in the rear yard, and congruity of the rear concrete terracing. Next, congruity of the green roof, congruity of the screened courtyard and plantings, and the increase to built area and built mass, and to defer the application to allow the applicant time to provide additional evidence and respond to committee comments. Next. So that's all from the initial staff report. The applicant has provided several new revisions in response to those comments and comments from DRAC, including, and they'll have a presentation for you following the staff presentation, including additional isometric views of the site, removal of the rear concrete terracing from the application, a revised front door design, original wood siding retention information, revised addition roof trim details, revised foundation design at the courtyard, revised rear window design, revised west elevation window openings, revised built area and built mass calculations, additional supporting evidence for built area and built mass in the historic district, and additional site drainage evidence and grading information. Oh, there we go. So let us know if you have any questions, but we'll turn it over. The applicant has a presentation for you as well.
Okay, well, at this time, we would hear from, well, let me ask you this, if I may, Aaron, at this point, is staff nevertheless still suggesting the matter be deferred for additional comment or for additional time for the applicant?
I feel that a number of the comments have been addressed with the new information, and if the committee is comfortable during the discussion, that we could suss out a way to make a decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Barnes, Mr. Hoffman, who wishes to speak next?
This is Zach Hoffman here. I'll start and run through the presentation. I believe I'll turn it over to Mr. Barnes at the end of it.
Thank you for that. Please proceed.
Great. Well, on behalf of our clients and us here at In Situ, thank you for your time tonight. I will try to be very brief. I think we've provided a bunch of information and tried to respond to COA comments from last month, conversations we had with DRAC, and a series of conversations we've had with RHTC. Next slide, please. Just real quickly, I wanted to give updated aerials of where we're at. You will see a lot of these changes in the updated elevations, but just to highlight a few, we've stepped in the courtyard space to provide a clear distinction from the original house. We've tried to divide the rear south-facing window into bay window into 3 divisions per DRAC comments and terracing walls. Next slide, please. This is a view from the northeast. You can see the green roof tucked in between the addition and the original house. Just wanted to provide this shot as a good part of this. The discussion tonight will be around the green roof. Next slide, please. These are just 4 elevations coming up over the next few slides that replace the original submission. This just highlights a change to the front door, working with staff to redesign to something more period appropriate. We've switched to a solid door with a single panel that has a 3/3 window in the top. Next slide, please. This is the east elevation showing the step on at the courtyard. We have introduced trim details reflecting a minimal traditional flat trim style at the request of DRAC along the addition's gable ends, and we've stepped the extension of the foundation wall so that there is a distinction between the addition and the site wall.
Zach, real quick, can you go back and just say what you said about that gable situation that you discussed with DRAC?
Sure, yes. Previously, we had the vertical siding running all the way up to the roof finish, and we've introduced a flat trim style in concordance with the minimal traditional style that was built around the first quarter of the previous century. As a nod towards the original style, but also providing a distinction. Next slide, Aaron. This is the main change on this elevation is highlighting the large piece of glass that was in the master. The bay window has now been divided into 3 distinct divisions. Next slide, please. And on the west elevation, we have one of the comments that we received in DRAC was about a portion of wall from the gable end extending all the way to the ground, and we have introduced that on the north side of that gable end. And then also this reflects the new trim style along the gable. Next slide, please. One thing that we wanted to clarify with our application that we were probably unclear of previously is the discussion around the existing siding. Our goal is to keep as much of the siding as possible. We expect that somewhere in the neighborhood of 75% of the original siding can be saved. The request we were making in the application is not to dispose of it, but it is to take it down, apply plywood for lateral stability, and add a weather barrier, which the house currently does not have. So adding life to the, or additional time to the siding, and then also preserving health safety for the clients as they renovate. These next few slides just show large batches of areas that after an inspection we believe could be saved. The next thing we wanted to discuss really quickly was we did, at the request or suggestion of RHDC, we looked into the Sanborn maps to look at the original house. It turns out that the original house prior to the 1950s edition had a additional room right to the east of the L in the original house, and then also a shed on site. So our calculation of built mass for the original house is a little bit different than it was last month. This is just showing 1909 and 1914 respectively. Next slide, please. So this is showing to the best of our ability. Obviously the Sanborn maps are actually kind of slightly different each time, but we did scale it up, and we estimate that there's about an additional 325 square feet or so of built mass from the original house. So that brought our current built mass up to 22.4%. Next slide, please. So we did revise the built mass for our proposal as well. We removed the terrace walls from the calculation. We did add the retaining wall, which we had forgotten to include previously, and then we added the courtyard since it is lifted to the built mass calculation, bringing our total up to 41.7. Next slide, please. So at its worst case, we at 41.7%, we started looking in the district for comparable conditions where built mass occupies somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of the lot size. We found 4 examples nearby. The 2 houses to the east of us prior to the addition had something in the 30s and are both somewhere in the 40s after addition. So that's in line with what we're proposing. And then also along Person Street, just to the west of us, there were 2 properties that where the original structures held upwards of 40% built mass. The 2 examples on the right are examples in the district of where a addition is larger than the original house. The asterisk to both of these properties is they have been moved to their current locations. So we acknowledge that, but 520 South Bloodworth, that house was only moved 2 lots down and has always been in Prince Hall Historic District. Next slide, please. So this is getting into some of the built mass calculations and our conversations at DRAC. One thing that they thought that we could consider is the green roof and courtyard space as offsetters of the built mass of the home. So our intention with the addition from the beginning was to mimic the form of the original house and provide flat roofs to connect the two volumes so that the clarity of the original house could be seen, but also something that was an addition that would be built would be comparable in scale and size to the original house. We didn't want to provide something for our clients that was much larger and out of place. So with the green roof and courtyard, accommodating those square footage changes, we end up with about 10% reduction in the kind of visual representation of the built mass, bringing us somewhere to around 33%. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is was at the suggestion of DRAC. Next slide, please. So going into a little more detail about the green roof, I know that staff has concerns primarily because there's never been a green roof approved in the historic districts before, and we acknowledge that, and we're hoping that we could be a good precedent for how you could do this in the future. So we did want to point out that modern sustainable tech has been approved in the district before in inconspicuous locations with solar panels, and so this is just a different avenue to pursue sustainability. Our hope with the green roof and courtyard, as we'll kind of end our presentation with, and Richard will speak to, is to handle a lot of the site water and runoff and control it, contain it, and use it rather than continue to exacerbate problems that are happening between the two houses. We're about 2 feet off of 314, and there's a large gravel driveway that currently collects a ton of rainwater between 316 and 318 and delivers it to a pond location at the bottom of the hill. With the way we've pitched the roofs and the courtyard and green roof, we can collect somewhere between 50 and 75% of all water that hits the house, and we plan to have a cistern in the basement that handles this. Next slide, please. Oh, the other thing to mention there is that the green roof would not be visible from the street or the courtyard. This is just a shot of the courtyard. It's about 230 square feet. It would collect water through a French drain system and take it to the cistern as well. The courtyard also provides an opportunity for a hyphen between the original house and the addition. And we propose to maintain privacy, a wood screen that's set below the water table so that the original form of the house is the distinct character, and it could be removed at any time down the road. Next slide, please. This is one of the craziest drawings I've ever done, but I promise all the arrows mean something. I wanted to highlight a few things here. First and foremost, in the center is a dashed red circle. That kind of identifies where water ponds, basically due to extensive regrading after the 2014 COA by the previous owner was approved. There's a flat spot that results in water ponding, which currently doesn't affect 316 in its current state, but does affect the neighbor. Our hope is to create a new runoff path that's in the dashed blue that keeps water moving into the natural kind of course at the low spot between all the lots that are on Cabarrus and Lenore Street, respectively. The other thing we wanted to do was regrade our yard so that no water, as it builds up, has a chance to move back towards 316, and that was the intent of the terrace walls and a significant regrading from the previous renovation. So all those arrows are showing kind of a bowl shape that we would like to use to push water towards that southwest corner of the lot. Next slide, please. This is 2 photos from last Friday showing where water collects. Obviously, it wasn't a large event last Friday, but we're hoping that the water can naturally be regraded to move further away from 318 and further down the hill. And I've one last slide, and then I'll let Richard speak for a minute. This is just identifying that the original kind of grading of the rear yard no longer exists currently, per arrow that labels B, where all of the large growth is. There's about an 18-inch cut for a previous foundation that was never poured, that has basically created a new swamp in their backyard. And then the arrow A shows the current grading of the neighbor's yard and the steep drop off between the property lines of 314 and 316. And with that, I want to just thank you guys again for your time, and maybe slide it back up 2 images to the pictures of the area ponding and turn it over to Richard. Thank y'all. Oh, one more down from that.
Yeah, either slide is fine. Let's see. Yeah, my name is Richard Barnes. I'm the homeowner at 318 East Cabarrus, next door to this project. Let's see. I'm a general contractor in Raleigh. I've been building homes and renovating houses in Raleigh for about 20 years now. I've been speaking with Brian regarding their plans for 316, and we're trying to work together so that we're working together to deal with the stormwater runoff, rather than the solution which exists throughout the city is everyone just shoots it at their neighbor's house. We're too close to do that, so we're trying to work together to have the water moved away from the living areas. And I have gutters and downspouts, and I have piped my downspouts to this back area of the picture here. That's where the water is running now, and we are trying to continue to send it towards the lowest spot in the back of the yards. So it's not going to end up in the basement or of either house. And that's all I have. I'm here in support of the project and the mitigating factors that they're proposing to reduce the rainwater runoff, the courtyard and the green roof, and the extension of the retaining wall in the back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, we'll turn to questions of Mr. Hoffman or Mr. Barnes or Aaron from members of the committee. Who has a question? Ian Dunn, I saw that hand first.
What happens to the water once it reaches this low spot?
I think
new low spot.
Well, I think that the hope is that that increasing the built mass contains more of the water that hits the property in general. Obviously, anything that's running downhill is going to find the lowest spot, but we are hoping that the kind of at a future stage, the plantings in that area would allow essentially like a bioswale the opportunity to hold water and release it at a slower speed into city drainage. And mainly in the stuff through the house, collecting in the cistern and using it on site. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Further questions, Ian? All right, nothing. Versailles Height, you had questions? Okay, who was it? I thought I saw another hand go up. John Reese.
Thank you. I've got several questions. Let's go to this drainage scenario. In the solution that you all came up with before, the terracing scenario, based on the efficacy or the best solution for the drainage, is this one that you've come up with now going to solve the drainage problem better than the one you did before with the terracing?
The terracing was primarily for the applicant to use as a stair and seating and hanging out in the yard. It had nothing to do with the drainage. The wall was the only thing. The north-south wall along the east edge of the house was the only thing.
Sorry, I kept thinking that the terracing was a way to help solve the drainage problem by kind of not.
It was a way to solve what we are now proposing, which is just a sloped hillside. The clients didn't want that. They'd preferred to step the hillside as a way to provide an outdoor space.
Okay. Well, that kind of brings up a question of the guidelines 1.3.13, which talks about incongruous site features. And apparently what I'm reading here, it's not appropriate to alter the topography of a site substantially through grading, filling, or excavating, nor is it appropriate to relocate drainage features unless there is a specific problem. From what I'm hearing, there's a specific problem. Is that not true?
That is correct.
Okay. And in this scenario, you all don't get the homeowners don't get to really use and take advantage of their backyard as much as they would if it were terraced.
Yes, I would say that's true.
Okay. I'm going to change topics here.
Well, before you change topics, John, I think that the other thing to note is that the original grade no longer exists anyway.
Okay. That's important to know. So my second issue is you showed that the way that you had detailed the sidewalls of the gables was at the recommendation of DRAC. I guess what I'm asking, and maybe this may be for staff because I don't see it necessarily in the report, and maybe I missed it.
Tanya's going to Tanya Tully here. I'm just going to step in.
Yes.
That we do not report on what DRAC says. Anything that's reported is considered hearsay. It is an advisory body only.
Thank you. Because I found it interesting that you all modified that detail to satisfy their request, but I'm not quite sure that there's any incongruous activity for you not to have kept what you had, especially because it seems to be a decorative compromise, not one that seems to be for anything that is.
John?
Yeah.
Tanya Tully here again. Yeah. Staff also, it wasn't just DRAC, it was staff's guidance that it was our judgment that the proposed terracing may be in Congress. So it wasn't just what they may have heard. It was our guidance. Also, my suggestion is that you review the application as it has been submitted now, okay, rather than what they submitted previously.
I understand. But my recent question was not to that point. My recent question was to the point of the detail that was modified from the previous application, because I'm not quite sure that we had an issue with that before. Did we?
I don't remember. We had feedback from a number of standpoints. I don't know that there was any comment about that one in particular.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is Aaron. I believe the initial staff. Sorry. Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
No, I'm calling on Brochet.
I was just going to say I'm looking at the report, and there is a note about the monolithic treatment of the addition's gable ends. So maybe that's the thing.
That's the solution to the monolithic gable ends. Okay. Okay. Another question. Is the issue with the courtyard, because it seems like there's two issues. One is the incongruity of it relative to, I I guess because it's on a base, it's on a foundation, and it therefore is tied to the foundation of the house. If it was an open thing, this would not be an issue. I'm asking staff that question.
This is Erin, John. Yes, the interpretation there is that when viewed from the east elevation and the foundation extends without any delineation, that it's floating and not tied to the structure.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, that makes sense to me. And then finally, with the green roof scenario, is this something that, this is true, we have never, RHDC has never really dealt with anything that's like a green roof scenario, or is it a situation where we never approved a green roof situation?
This is Erin again. I believe that no green roof has ever been applied for. So this is the first discussion.
First application. Okay, that makes sense to me too. I still want to go back to the terracing thing, though, because regardless of how it's being changed now, it seems like this is a reaction to what they had done before. And I'm not quite sure that, and I may be wrong about revisiting stuff, but it's a scenario where if I had not spoken up prior to this and understood that the drainage issue for this specific site were as an issue that it is, I was in error in kind of promoting that this thing should be redone, because I'm seeing this as a scenario where this is clearly not incongruous with 1.3.13.
Okay, I heard that. Are there other comments or questions as to other features of this proposal? Michelle, do you have something else, or I'll go back to Ian Dunn?
I just, as a quick question to the follow-up of the site, I know you mentioned that the current grading kind of doesn't exist. I guess a question for staff might be, is there generally some grading that is characteristic of the area that something would adhere to, or is it localized?
Erin, do you want to respond?
Let me see if I understand. The question is in regards to the drainage issues at the rear?
Right. We're still talking about the site.
Yes. So this site has been, as Nick noted, has had some significant regrading in the past in preparation for a past project that was not completed. So the grading is currently proposed to help correct that. I believe there's a lot of runoff at the rear of the driveway that is giving the neighbor some issues with water in their basement. So the neighbor is also testifying or present tonight to speak to that. And the site wall that is in the plan currently is the site element that's proposed to address the drainage and regrading issues. And I'm not remembering, I think we discussed it, but I'm not remembering if it's actually in the application. Zach, did you step down the site wall rather than continuing with the extension in your revisions?
Yes, we did. Yeah, at the rear, right at the southeast corner. You can see it from my presentation on, let's see, the east proposed elevation. You can see a 1 foot step in the foundation wall. And then also to reiterate, we are stepping down the courtyard wall the same amount, so that things that belong to the site are the site, things that belong to the house are at a different datum.
Okay, thank you.
Can you all bring that slide up, please, that shows that what you just said about the courtyard dropping? Schedule.
Give me just a moment.
That question, I asked that question because in the drawings I see that the courtyard is not dropped. It's the same level as the foundation.
I think they're talking about the wall, that retaining wall in the light. But we'll get the picture up there and then let the top and talk about each piece so that we're clear.
I'm not sure which is going to be the best one. I'm just going to flip through them and you tell me to stop.
Yep, it's just the east elevation proposed. I think it's the 5th slide of the presentation I gave tonight. One.
I will say thank you very much in situ for numbering your pages. We don't get that very often. This is delightful because I can actually go to the page number, and I'm looking at page 40.
Let's find that sheet 5 east elevation so that we've got that up. Maybe it'll help us move this discussion.
There you go.
All right, now, Mr. Hoffman, will you talk us through what you've changed?
Sure. So previously, the datum that existed as the top of foundation wall for the house was also the top of the wall for the site. And now at the courtyard, it steps down 1 foot and steps back 1 foot from the face of the original house. And then at the end of the addition, the wall steps down again back to that same 1 foot lower datum.
Right. As long as we're talking about that point, which would be the southeast, that retaining wall then drops. It drops once at the corner of the addition, and it drops how many more times before it ends?
1 more time after that. We do drop it because that would get it up to, if it stayed at its constant height from that point, it could, because of the way grade falls away, it would be 6 feet tall or so by the end of it. And we wanted to mitigate what Richard was looking at.
Right. No, I was thinking about how much of that do we really have to have? Exactly. Okay, I got that. Because everybody's seen all of that they want. And we can pull that down. At some point, I want to put back up the one that shows the green roof and the courtyard so that we can have that discussion. Are there further questions for that? That's Ian Dunn.
Because in regards to the siding, I'm glad that y'all are taking steps to save the siding. Have you explored ways to insulate the building without taking the siding off? You taking it off causes me pause, as I don't want to end up in a situation of like a ship of Theseus where, everything's taken off and at the end of the day, only half a dozen boards, original boards, are put back up. But you can say it has original siding. So have you explored ways to do it without taking the siding off? I know it's possible.
We have consulted across the industry as well as with building scientists about, possibilities of insulating from the interior using something like a closed cell foam. The problem with a closed cell foam is it would trap moisture between the closed cell foam and the siding, shortening the life of the siding, but protecting the folks living there. We have explored other options. I think an open cell foam or putting a weather barrier on the inside. All of these have kind of mainly impacts to the health, safety, welfare of the owners. The difference between 2020 and when the house was built, there was no insulation in the original house. There also was no forced air. So the introduction of forced air and a cool air on the backside of that would create mold pretty much in a hurry. So we do feel like it, from our office standpoint, discussing with a building inspector and building scientist, the best option is to take it off, properly seal the house, and put it back up. We have discussed with RHCC at length about this and understand that, the expectation is 50+% should and must be saved. If it even after we take off the first wall, if we realize that might be a problem, we know that We have specific constructions and expectations to reach out to our HDC and talk about how we move forward from that.
I'm concerned with the possibility that it'll break all to pieces when you try to take it off, and I've had some experience with that myself. Is there also an issue of there not being any sheathing back of the siding, and that you're worried about stability for the structure?
Yeah. Yes, that is true.
Okay, so it's not just the insulation, it's the desire to put plywood up to provide the structure that sheathing would have done if it had been sheathed at the outset.
That's correct, and provide a surface for the weather barrier.
Okay. Other questions? Does anybody have other questions they want to review with staff, or these, or Mr. Hoffman or Mr. Barnes, before we close the public hearing and turn the discussion internally? Mr. Harold Millette, you got questions? You haven't had anything to say yet. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. Just taking it all in.
All right. Now, so are there further questions before we turn to internal discussion? There were a number of factors that were brought up that merited discussion and questions to these folks. If you don't have any, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll turn to a discussion internally. All right, then I will close the public hearing. If we need to, we'll reopen it. I'll say with respect to the green roof that I'm viewing it like solar panels. If they're on a site, a location where you can't see it from the street, I think that it's okay in this particular situation. I'm inclined to support the green roof concept, given that we can't see it, and we should be sensitive to the environment if we can do that without damage to the historic fabric, as it appears we're doing. How do y'all feel about the elevated courtyard and the louvered panel now that it's set back from the side wall of the original structure? John Reese?
I'm going through this and trying to be very good about not doing design speak here, because I'm trying to understand exactly what the issue is on the incongruity of that courtyard, because what I do understand and what I do get is that when the foundation is at the same level as the house and there is no delineation between that and the courtyard, then yes, that courtyard basically becomes part of the addition. It is not at that stage necessarily a separation. In hearing and seeing what they've done in terms of dropping it some, it does create some sense of separation between that and the existing house. And I actually find it somewhat sensitive to those guidelines that while it's subtle, it seems to create the scenario where it limits the impact of it. So I'm seeing that it seems to that change in elevation is what I think has been the burr under the saddle.
Okay, further discussion from members of the committee. Versailles?
Yes, I think the only question I had about the courtyard that it wasn't clear if it was addressed. There is a comment in the staff notes about the depth and the spacing of the screen, and the idea that it might be perceived as a solid wall in the overall massing. So I'm not sure if that was addressed or not. I don't see where that was updated.
I think I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. They didn't mute me yet. So,
Ordinarily you're not supposed to, but without objection, I'll reopen the public hearing so we can hear from Mr. Hoffman on that point. Go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
okay, great. Sorry about that. The presentation I gave tonight shows an image of that east elevation looking into the courtyard. We propose using 1x4s Ipe at 4 inches on center, so we have 3/4 inches solid, and then or 3 1/4 remaining between. So it's essentially 75% open or so.
And am I correct that you would propose to set those without an angle so that they are parallel to the street?
That's correct. We did provide a detail of that in our original application.
All right, thank you. Anything else you want to ask him before I close the public hearing again? All right. Y'all done? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And with that in mind, is there someone who would like to get a motion started, and we'll see where it goes and if it gets a second? John, you're muted.
I would like to move that I'm going to screw this up, but I'm going to try. That we approve the addition as shown and per what?
Well, the way we usually do that, John, is to say that based upon the evidence received in the hearing and in the application as revised, we find that, and then we start down through the bullet points in the staff comments, except revise them as we need to.
Okay. What you said, and then what I'm having difficulty with is saying all the right things, using the right guideline numbers, because I feel that in referencing the congruity of the geez, I'm going to screw this up because I don't have the right. There's so many little bullet points here that I don't have the.
Pick up with staff report on the second page. I think that's where you start.
Thank you.
And then if we need to cite another one off the guidelines that you consider as important, we will put that in.
Okay. Okay. That raising the existing structure, removing and installing a skylight is not incongruous with guideline sections 1.3.1 and 1.3.2, 1.3.7, 2.1.1, 2.2.1, or 10, excuse me, 2.4.1, 2.5.1, 2.55, 2.5.8, 2.510, 2.511, and
and fact numbers 1 through 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Also installing doors and windows, replacing siding, and altering existing exterior paint colors is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 1.3.1, 1.3.2, 1.3.7, 2.1.1, 2.2.10, 2.4.1, 2.5.1, 2.5.5, 2.5.8, 2.5.10, 2.511.
May I make a suggestion? If you're saying that at the top in B, where you say installing a door and window, it says replacing siding, maybe you want to say replacing, removing and reinstalling.
Exactly. Removing and replacing existing siding. Thank you.
And then reinstalling.
Yes, reinstalling. Yeah, because I know for a fact that as an architect, these houses were built where the siding was put directly to the studs, which is a real issue because it acted as the lateral brace as well as the surface cover.
All right. And so then you pick up with about the location of the window in the front door, but that's been changed up.
Correct.
The old one.
And then with the following facts 1 through 8. I also adding constructing a new addition is not incongruous with concept according to guidelines section 1.3.1, 1.3.2, 1.3.6, 1.3.7, 1.310, 2.1012, 3.3.1, 3.2.2, 3.2.5, 3.2.6, and 3.2.7. And the proposed built area and built mass, the installation of the green roof, and the construction of a screen courtyard is not incongruous with guidelines 1.3.8, 1.3.9, 1.4.8, 1.411, 3.2.7, 3.2.8, 3.2.10, 3.2.11, 3.2.12, with the following facts, 1 through 6. Oh, excuse me. Through 13. Sorry, my bad. No, there's more. Jeez. Goes all the way to 23, 24, 25, 20, 29. Jeez. All this goes all the way through.
All right.
32. Thank you. 32. 1 through 32.
Okay, now, can we get a second to that motion, and then we'll go back with the amendments you maybe need. Ian Dunn seconds the motion, and I'm trying to remember where all we need to make an adjustment. On the rear addition, did we not change to horizontal?
No, that was Tanya Tully here, staff here. That did not change. I also wanted to clarify that the motion that y'all just made was based on the amended application.
Yes.
That would be leading, yes.
Yes.
That amended application and the testimony received at the two public hearings.
So if you would like, staff can go through the amended application, change the facts accordingly, and bring them back next month for your review and approval rather than walking through them one by one today, since we did not do that and there are 32 plus facts.
Yeah, great. That certainly works for me, and there's less likelihood we'll make a mistake if that's the sense of the committee.
Right, and I just want to make sure that staff, we understand what you're suggesting is and is not incongruous, because I was listening and trying to write at the same time. So if we could just, may I go through them and see what I understood? Can you tell me if I got your motion right?
Sure.
So A, everything is not incongruous, just like staff suggested. B, you are saying that removing and reinstalling the siding is not incongruous. You're striking the wholesale part and changing it.
Right.
You struck the front door because that has changed.
Right.
There was not a change to the window in their application. So are you still wanting that to be approved or not approved?
I'd like to see, that's one part. Thank you for bringing that up, Tanya. I would like to have that one come back again because that's something I was not so thrilled about.
Okay, so so maybe just amend your motion to keep that as is incongruous?
Yeah, let's go that direction for now.
Okay, so we're keeping just the window there as congruous. So C, which is the really long one, the new addition is not incongruous. The solid savoids, treatment of the gable ends, vertical siding is not incongruous. Is that what you're saying? Okay, and same with the built area, built mass, courtyard, green roof, all of that is not incongruous?
Yes.
Right, and the okay, so D is not incongruous based on the amended application. So they adjusted that and they're not doing the rear terracing. So that's not incongruous. And then E, rear fence, not incongruous, and that's not a change. Okay. So I understand it as from staff standpoint, we can adjust the findings of fact based on the new revised amended application if y'all are comfortable doing it that way and understand your own.
Yeah, I think the appropriate way for us to proceed here, Tanya, though, is for us not to vote something we haven't seen yet. Let's, without objection, I'll defer it for that limited purpose of us being able to see the motion, and then we'll take action on the COA and what conditions need to be imposed or put in the motion that we usually make as the second motion next month. But we've got guidance that we're trying to move toward approval of this project in the broad outline.
I would like to bring up two things, Tanya. This is my question. Is it possible they can go back to the terracing thing and when they come back again and they redesign it, can they go back to the terracing thing in the back instead of doing the slope? One question. Second is, can they go and go back to a more refined detail, ignoring the DA's suggestion, and instead of having the siding go up to the cornice piece, that it go back to what they had before?
Mr. Fountain has closed the public hearing. It is y'all's choice if you want to reopen it and allow the applicant to amend the application again.
Okay. I won't drag us through that. I just wanted to, if it was an easy thing, I thought it might give them the option to do so, because again, I don't see those things necessarily being incongruous with the guidelines, but I won't push it. Thank you.
Well, you might not get unanimity on some of that if we did that. So maybe we ought to leave it alone. Rashay Height.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, I would kind of leave those things up to the discretion of the applicant. But as far as what we've seen, we're kind of in a forward direction. So with caution. All
right, good. So that's progress for today. And so what I need for the record then is a motion to defer based on the progress made to this point. And John Reach makes that motion, and Rashay Height seconds the motion. To defer. All in favor say aye, raise your hand, and that motion carries, and so we've gotten that far with this. And the next item on the agenda is 215 East Cabarrus, and I need to ask a couple of preliminary questions, and depending on the answer to those questions, I'll need to recuse myself and not participate in this particular matter. So Edna Valentine, am I correct that the only matter of concern to you with regard to this project that's next door to you is the driveway?
Yes, sir. That's it.
All right. Now, Fred Belden, am I understanding that you're okay for today's purposes to proceed and set aside the driveway, giving yourself time to work that out with Edna?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding that the owners of the property in Edna have some coordination to do on that. So absolutely.
All right, then
staff has a quick question. Is it removing it from the application or deferring it for later?
I'm trying to defer it.
Just the driveway. Thank you.
Yes, we would prefer to defer it, and we can bring it back once Edna and the property owners have had a chance to work through everything.
Okay, then I'll ask Aaron Morton to explain the proposal, and I will not find it necessary to step out.
Can we get affirmations, please?
Sure. That said, Edna, I don't know if you have anything that you want to say at all, but if Fred, Edna, Aaron, I'm going to administer the oath, and do you and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give, no matter being heard, to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Aaron Morton?
I do.
Fred Bellerton?
I do.
Edna Valentine?
I do.
Okay, great. Someone has got feedback, and we'll need to mute that microphone. All right, but at this point, we'll turn to Aaron Morton to explain the proposal to us before we hear from Fred Bellerton.
All right, this is COA 137-2020 for 215 East Cabarrus Street in the Prince Hall Historic District. The application is to remove the rear deck, construct rear deck and screen porch, remove the rear shed, alter driveway, remove shutters, alter doors, alter exterior paint color, and alter landscaping. Next. This is a photo of 215 East Cabarrus from the street. A view of the driveway side, which is the east elevation. And the current existing condition of the side will, the driveway deferred, we won't focus on that. Next. This is the west elevation of the property. Next. And the rear, you can see the existing deck on the back of the house. Next. And a full view of the rear elevation of the house. Next. And the existing shed located near the rear property line in the backyard. Next. And the applicant made us aware that in the course of some of the renovations, siding replacement has already begun. This is considered routine maintenance at this point to the existing structure. Next. Staff suggestion is to discuss the merits of a 365-day demolition delay for the removal of the rear shed and to approve with conditions.
Okay, Fred Belden, we'd be glad to hear from you.
Okay. I think the case in general is pretty straightforward. I don't have a lot to offer. A couple of quick questions regarding the proposed conditions. The condition number 4, that a new window installation at the existing attic louver not be approved. If you take a look at the front elevation, you'll note that the louver that's up there is definitely not original. It's a later addition. And based on the window frame, we're pretty sure that it was a window up there initially. It's similar to J.E. Williams' house, which is next door. So we'd ask if you might consider allowing a window, or if not, if you could clarify if the applicant or the owner would be able to replace the existing louver with a full-size louver.
Can staff put that picture of the front street elevation up again? Now, while we've got this picture up, Mr. Belden, if you will talk to us about what you think we should be seeing with respect to those louvers up there.
Okay, so this would be the gable end louver in the upper left corner. You can see the light blue or the light gray green painted louver, and you can see the tan portions around it. The tan portions are plywood, so that is most definitely not an original louver. And I don't have documentation of it, but having been up and looked at the attic, the casing is framed more like a window casing than a louver casing. And unfortunately, you can't see it in the photo next door, but there is a window in the gable end of J.E. Williams' house next door, which is currently under renovation. So I guess what I would politely request is permission to either replace the existing louver with the window or at least a full-size louver that properly fills that frame.
And so, Aaron Martin, do you have any response to that inquiry?
I do. I would need to go and review the conditions on the staff report as they currently stand, but I don't believe the condition is recommending that the existing conditions be retained, but rather that a window not be the new application. With the new evidence, we just don't have that in hand. Maybe that would be a piece of the condition as well.
That works for me. If you'd like to make it we can provide some information to Aaron.
All right, we can certainly work in that direction. Yeah, I don't think the existing conditions from staff says that that louver can't be replaced. It was rather about whether it needed to be replaced with a louver rather than a window. All right. Anything else, Brad Belden?
No, I think all the other conditions look well considered and reasonable. Thank you for the review.
Thank you. Now I'll turn to questions from members of the committee. Any questions about this particular application? I'm not seeing being done.
Regarding the columns, you said that they were deteriorated beyond repair. What made you come to that conclusion? Because on my site visit, I looked at them and they didn't appear to be rotten. The bases do, but the columns themselves look okay. I'm wondering if you just know more than I do.
I don't believe we indicated anywhere that we thought the columns were deteriorated beyond repair. If I did, if you can point it out, I think it's an oversight. The intention is to repair all of the existing, to retain and repair only as needed all of the existing exterior envelope, including keeping the siding in place. We're doing a standard approach of inserting building wrap in the stud cavities and insulating from inside. So none of the removing and reinstalling stuff. But the columns are definitely intended to remain. Ian.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Versailles Heights.
I may be missing something, but I'm curious about staff's comment about discussing the kind of 365-day demolition delay. I know the recommendation is that it be waived for the shed, but I was just curious about the history behind that.
Well, it's an old shed. It wouldn't appear to go back to the time of the original construction of the house, but those are not in any way new cinder blocks, and so the request is to remove it, and we could require a delay of a year. But speaking for myself, I don't see any reason to do that.
Yeah, I'm not recommending that, any of this changes. I was just curious about, why it even, I guess, kind of came up. That's all.
This is Aaron. I will jump in and just say that we had questions about that as well initially. The Prince Hall Historic District period of significance extends up to 1960, and there's evidence that the shed existed in the 1950s. So we... given that it is considered a contributing piece by falling within that period of significance, we are just trying to address the way we typically handle historic accessory structures, with that demolition delay.
So, Aaron, let me then chime in here. So I get that it goes back to the 1950s, but in the course of creation of this district, did we actually find that it was a contributing structure?
That's a good point, and that was a poor choice of words on my part. It is not referenced in the designation report for the district.
Okay. All right. Are there further questions from members of the committee? Anything else before we close the public hearing? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll call on Versailles Height to try a motion on this particular application.
All right. I move that the committee approve this.
Based on the information in the application and at the hearing.
Right, based on the information contained in the application and staff's evaluation.
And at the hearing.
And the evidentiary hearing, that altering the driveway and altering landscaping is not incongruous according to guidelines section 1.3.1, 2, 8, and 8.
I think we deferred the driveway.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that is 1.5.5 and 6 and 8.
I think you can actually just skip A and its.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Okay, we'll skip 8.
I mean, there isn't
any for the moment.
The shrubbery in the front yard, but if we just come back and deal with that
later.
In the deferral, that's fine too. So just
Okay.
go on to B.
Okay. So, an evidentiary hearing. According to B, removing shutters, altering doors, and altering exterior paint colors is not incongruous with in concept according to guidelines section 1.3.11, 2.1.1, 3, 2.3.4, 2.110, 2.2.4, 5, 2.4.2, 3, and facts 1 through 8. Also, removing the rear deck, constructing rear deck and screen porch, and removing the rear shed is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines section 1.6.1, 3.1.1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3.2.1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and the following suggested facts 1 through 7.
Okay, that'd be the motion. Is there a second to that motion? John Reed seconds the.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to Versailles' motion, specifically item 4 of B, where it says the applicant proposed installing a window as an alternative, and it says that the installation of a glazed window unit in place of a traditional ventilation louver on the primary elevation is considered incongruous. A friendly amendment would be to strike that section and to allow them to install a window, or either one is fine, rather than just saying that it's got to be a louver.
I think you could do that by deleting the last 2 sentences of sub 4 there.
Okay, that's fine.
And then let's see. In making the motion, I was one of those. I wasn't sure we included all the sites. I guess that was B. I wasn't sure we cited all the 2.5.1, 2, 4, et cetera, that second line of sites. Did you do that, Rashay? I wasn't looking. There were other sites right there. It's the third line, top of the page.
I thought I grabbed him, but I can.
Okay, great. Well, if you did, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm just double checking. And Wait, there's a motion and a second for the friendly amendment. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. It carries unanimously. And Versailles, do you have a follow-up motion with regard to issuance of the COA?
Yes, I think so. Is this where I say with the following conditions that were provided by?
Yeah, that the application be approved with following conditions.
All right, I move that the application be approved with the following conditions. 1, 2, and 3, with an adjustment to 4, which I wrote down that the applicant will investigate the window versus louver replacement with staff to determine.
How about you say that the window be approved if evidence is provided to and approved by staff?
Okay.
Fine. And then items 5 and 6.
Yes.
Okay, everybody understand that motion? Is there a second to the motion? John Reed seconds motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your hand. That motion carries. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Fred and Edna. And I trust y'all will get that worked out and we can move the driveway piece and the landscaping as well. So the next item is 225 South Wilmington Street. That's COA 145-2020. And we have several persons who have signed up to speak on that matter. And I'll administer those to all of you and to Colette at this time. Do you and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the matter being heard of its truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Colette?
I do. I do.
All right, Meredith Kirkpatrick.
I do.
David Meeker.
I do.
Brent Francis. Greg Garcia. We got some background noise there so that I could not hear Brent or Greg.
Greg said I do.
Okay, David Lockwood.
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fountain,
Yes,
Mr. Fountain, Tanya Tully here. Greg Garcia did not sign the written oath that was provided ahead of time.
Okay, and that's a city requirement, is it?
That is one of the requirements in order for us to be allowed to, hold the virtual meeting.
All right,
The other thing is I did also want to remind you that we're supposed to do a roll call for the votes also for the quasi judicial.
All right. Well, I'm thinking if I indicate it's unanimous that we got that, but I'll be sure to, I'll handle that on the next one. Mr. Garcia, then you're not going to be able to speak today, but you have plenty of folks there to do it. Colette Canane, will you explain this particular proposal?
I will. This is case COA 0145-2020 for 225 South Wilmington Street. It is in the Moore Square Historic District, General HOD. The project request is to install a roof structure over a second floor roof deck, install new lights, replace railing, change paint color, and replace siding. Next slide. This is a view of the property from Wilmington Street. Next slide. So across the street, a little further down, this is a view towards the property. It is not the building immediately on the end, it's one in. So this is to illustrate what you can view of the roof area, which is part of your discussion. Next slide. And then this is another photograph a little closer, also across the street. And the building in question is the second in. So staff's recommendation, is to discuss the visibility of the proposed canopy structure and whether or not it compromises the character of the historic district. And pending the results of that discussion, approve with conditions. There was some information provided, which you should have seen. These address some of the concerns mentioned in the staff report. That is drawings illustrating visibility and photographs from Wilmington Street.
Okay, who would like to speak first for the applicant?
I will. So this is Meredith Kirkpatrick. I provided the additional building section, sightline section from the street, and also the photographs from Wilmington Street to address staff's comments about visibility and to indicate that it is not visible from the public right-of-way. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have about that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else want to be heard on in support of this?
Ira, will you unmute everybody from that case so they can speak up if they're going to?
I don't believe anyone else is planning to speak.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
Right. That's great. All right. Other questions from members of the committee for the staff or applicants? I'm not seeing any. John Reese?
Just more nosy than anything. What is the, because I must have missed it on the note, what is the material on the underside of the canopy that's exposed?
Sure. It's a 2x6 tongue and groove sealed wood.
Okay. Other questions?
That's all I have.
All right. Harold Millett?
I just had a question about the new railing system being installed. Is there a wooden, what is this? What does the top of that railing system look like? Are those two different materials?
Steel. They're not. So there's a spec provided that points out it's all black steel. Basically, there's a 1x2 rectangular steel handrail.
Further questions?
I'm confused by that. The drawings don't show a 1x square, but showing something.
You're going in and out, John.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Relative to that last question, the drawings don't show that. It shows something with a round rod and more almost like a cable structure. Am I updated, or it just didn't get put in the drawings, or what?
The railing itself is a round rod railing. They're 1/4-inch rod, so it's very similar to a cable rail. And then the top handrail is a rectangular section.
Rectangular section. Okay, it's shown round in your drawing, so I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? Anything else before I close the public hearing? You got the information you want with regard to visibility and the angle of that panel as to how that sets up that canopy, I mean. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing and turn to discussion internally. What do y'all think about the notion of the canopy concept and its congruity or incongruity? To me, a lot of it has to do with location, and in this rear location of the building that's second in from from the exit of the deck. It's going to be difficult to see if you see it at all.
Nick, I completely agree with you. I mean, I've been up on this roof deck several times. I didn't even know it existed until I got up there. And especially given the fact that the only view to this roof deck is from the parking lot driveways, it's a very discreet and very unobtrusive applique.
I agree with John.
Okay. Then, Ian, you want to, unless there's further discussion, you prepared to make a motion?
Sure. Based upon the evidence presented in the application and during this evidentiary hearing, installing a roof structure over a second floor roof deck, replacing a railing and replacing siding are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 2.5.1, 2.5.10, 11, 2.6.1. The visibility of the proposed canopy roof structure is not incongruous according to guidelines 2.5.10 and the following suggested facts 1 through 11. Installing new lights, replacing lights, and changing paint color are not incongruous according to guidelines 1.7.1, 0.9, 0.10, 2.4.3, 2.9.1, 0.7, and the following suggested facts 1 through 3.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Verche Height seconds the motion, and I would inquire, Ian, does anything need to be said about supplemental information indicating that it's not visible from the public right of way?
Say that again, Nick. I didn't quite get that.
I wasn't sure I saw a finding that the supplemental information reflected that it was not visible from the public right of way.
It's not, I think you should add, this is Tanya here, I think you should add that fact. We didn't have that. You may also want to alter A5 or strike A5 in its entirety.
Then you, how about this idea, Ian, that we strike 5 and insert in its place that the proposed painted structure would not be visible from the public right of way as designed?
Okay.
Okay, y'all all right for that then? Any further discussion or question? Did that motion get a second? I can't remember. All right, Verche Height, Verche, you got a question or comment?
It's more so for staff based on guidelines and time frame. So I don't know when the appropriate time to kind of ask it or mention it is.
Why don't you ask it now?
Okay, so I was just curious. I know that I was just reading through the character description of the area, and just as an aside, I know Moore Square itself has had a significant renovation. So I don't know to what extent that's captured in our guidelines, and if any modifications as far as character need to be updated based on that. I know for this hearing, we're concluding that, you know, you can't see it, and so it's fine. But I would also argue that there are even, I guess, materiality and architectural components that are akin to what we're seeing in Moore Square that maybe could be considered for future cases.
So the cases to approve COAs can be used as examples. We have not yet updated any special character essays since the guidelines were first adopted in this format in 2001. That said, I'm not sure that, you know, modern changes would necessarily reflect the historic character. The presumption is COAs that were approved maintain the historic character all along. I will also add, though, we do need to continually be, you know, updating and resurveying our districts generally. But to answer your question, I think no.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor with a second as amended. Everybody understand the motion? If so, I'll call the roll on that motion. All in favor, Ian Dunn?
Appropriateness approved. I move that the certificate of appropriateness be
Well,
approved.
wait a minute, we haven't passed we got to pass that motion first. I don't think we did we?
Oh, okay.
So are you in favor of the motion? You made it.
Yes.
All right, there you go. Verche? Aye. Harold Millette? Aye. Votes aye. John Reed? All right, and I vote aye, and the motion carries. Now, Ian, you have a follow-up motion with regard to the COA.
I move that a certificate of appropriateness be approved. And under the following conditions, where are the conditions? That detailed drawings or specifications for the following be provided and approved prior to staff, prior to installation or construction. Finished details for wood components of canopy.
Is there a second to that motion? John Reese seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. John Reese says aye. And let's see, Verche Height says aye. Ian Dunn says aye. Harold Millette says aye. And I vote aye as well. So the motion carries unanimously. And that takes care of that application. The applicants will be able to deal with staff from here. Thank you for coming and thank you for your patience. The next application is 906 Dorothea Drive, number 146-2020. And I believe that Harry Rebecki and Joel Lubell are here along with Aaron Morton. And at this time, I'll administer the oath to each of you. You and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to the members of the committee and the matter being heard to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If so, say, I do when I call your name. Aaron Morton.
I do.
Harry Rebecki.
I do.
And Joel Lubell.
I do.
Okay, Aaron, would you explain this proposal to us?
This is case COA 146-2020 for 906 Dorothea Drive in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The work description is to install a fence, construct a rear covered walkway, construct a rear patio, alter existing patio, and alter driveway. Next. This is a view of 906 Dorothea Drive from the street. Next. This is a view, I believe, of the west elevation of the east elevation of the house. Next. And a view of the existing rear elevation and gravel patio area abutting the house. Next. This is a view of the rear yard where you can better see the existing gravel patio and retaining wall, as well as looking back towards the alleyway that runs behind the property. Next. And this is a view from the rear of the property, looking back towards the house across the full yard. Next. And this is a different angle still from the rear alley, and you can see the existing rear parking area that is proposed to be expanded and covered. Next. The staff suggestion is to approve with conditions. Next. And the applicant has provided new information for the meeting, consisting of a revised rear fence design, and supporting evidence of a previously approved covered walkway in Boylan Heights. Next. Oh, that's it.
Right. Aaron, I'm going to come back to you, and I would like to see what the findings were with respect to the other covered walkway that from a couple of years ago that I think the applicants have called to our attention. But at this point, I'd like to hear from the applicants anyway. Mr. Rebecca or Ms. LaBelle, who wants to talk about the proposal?
Mr. LaBelle will be talking. Thank you for your time this evening. It might feel like a few years ago, but the covered walkway was approved in January of this year and was constructed and since then as well. So this, to us, kind of breaks down to the 4 areas: the brick and gravel driveway, the fence. We're seeing the pergolas over the patios as separate structures. And then we have the covered walkway that leads from the house back to the parking area. Mr. Rybeck had some issues with limbs falling on his car and then just kind of falling into the backyard. He's also just looking for some privacy back there. Hopefully the brick patios and expanding the parking area, I think, were approved by staff, as well as we made adjustments to our fence design to come in there. They had the issue with the covered walkway, which we found, another walkway that was approved this year. And so we're hoping that that is sufficient for us to kind of move forward with this design. If there's any issues that come up, we'd love to be able to speak to them as well during your discussion.
Okay, thank you. So my first question is to Aaron. Aaron, with regard to that other walkway, I certainly remember that particular matter, and I was just trying to remember because we had this same discussion, or much of it, about a covered walkway in Boylan Heights, and there were, I was trying to recall if there were some particular findings made or with respect to how the line of the roof was broken up, or what was done on that other one last January or whenever it was.
Sure. So that was actually my first meeting on the job, and I was a viewer rather than a participant. However, we did review the staff report for that particular project, and there was a lot of discussion around the goal that would not be a precedent, a case to be used as precedent and viewed as a temporary structure for the health of the occupant. In terms of specific conditions, we can check that. Colette or Tanya, if you are aware, please speak up, and otherwise I'll check that and have it for you in just a minute.
Well, my assumption was that, yeah, there was a lot about that was a temporary solution, and so we need to see what that is, because if that's the case, then the reliance on it as precedent is maybe not appropriate in this case, and we'll have to have that discussion all over again with respect to this application.
If I may, I read through the meeting minutes and staff report, kind of diligently preparing for this. And while that did come up, in the end, it did not end up making it into the findings, or however it says in the conditions. Part of the reason it also was discussed as a not to be used as a precedent was not necessarily as a covered walkway, because the staff report in that instance says that the covered walkway was not incongruous, but it was a precedent that they did not want to use it to allow attached garages, because the way it was designed, it looked like the garage at that point was attached. And since Boylan Heights did not have attached garages, they didn't want to set the precedent for attached garages. So once the design was changed to make the covered walkway no longer look of the house and or the garage, that was my understanding of when it was approved.
Okay, and do you recall the same thing, or what?
I'll just jump in and say, while Joel was reviewing that, he is correct that there are no conditions from that application to address the walkway or anything about its design. There was extensive conversation about the presence of the walkway creating an attached garage to the house.
So at the end of the day, was there a design change in the walkway so that it is in fact not attached?
Let me keep reviewing. I'm sorry, I don't have this on hand. I did Monday. Just a second.
I thought I should step up and try and dig this out because I wasn't sure any of you were on the panel when we considered that other file.
Right. I have a question, though, in terms of attached versus detached garages, just for the sake of it. Does an attached garage mean that it must be solidly covered over, or is a trellis type thing considered to be an attachment, or have the possibility of becoming an attached garage scenario?
Well, the fundamental is that attached garages were not typical of the period of significance of the neighborhood. And so it's all about the extent to which any new proposal needs to not be attached, and how one might meet a property owner's concerns and needs otherwise, whether it's because of their health or because they don't want to be hit on the head by acorns.
This is Aaron speaking back up. So I'm just gonna, with your permission, Nick, read a couple of lines out of the certified record from that case.
I think that would be helpful to us, because if we are creating a precedent and we didn't mean to, we certainly need to understand what the precedent was about. And I do think a lot of the discussion earlier was about, in that other file, was about attached garages. But yes, please enlighten us.
So within the committee discussion portion of the hearing, you, Mr. Fountain, said that it seems like a reasonable way to address these concerns, but we may have to modify the language of the findings. Jimmy Team said, can the language changes suggest that this is a temporary measure and is tied to the current resident's ownership of the property? Tanya Tully said this could be a potential condition, that the walkway gets removed if the property changes hands. Mr. Raspberry can speak to the legality of that. Jimmy Team, I just wanted to be clear that we're approving this because of special circumstances. Mr. Raspberry, the condition that removal is expected with a change of ownership likely sets a bad precedent, but we could want to indicate how this is a special circumstance. And with no objection from the committee, Mr. Fountain closed the committee discussion. And it doesn't appear that there are any conditions. I can review the language and the findings of fact as well if you'd like.
Okay, so you're saying we talked all about conditions, but then didn't put any in.
That is what the case seems to be, Nick. Tanya Tully here. Right before the findings of fact and conclusion of law, concerns were raised about the language being included to reflect the special accommodation of current occupants. And then it says that an appropriate solution was found to reflect these concerns, but the facts themselves, I don't see anything to that effect. That said, and Mr. Raspberry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, no case is ever a precedent. Each case is taken separately. We would need to compare the situations, compare what staff would typically do when provided with an example ahead of time is to compare the similarities and differences between the properties and share that with you. But we have not done so in this case.
Well, I think it's significant that we get this right, because if we're going to make sure that we don't have attached garages, whatever we do have in the way of pergolas and the like, then we need to be pretty sure of our ground here, because in all those alleys, there's going to be. We're going to have them everywhere, and maybe that's okay, but I want to do it knowing. So my inclination is to is to defer this to allow staff to pull together and assess these conditions. And in the meantime, I'd like to encourage the architects here to look carefully at the design as to the extent to which it appears to be an attached garage or not, and deal with it in that way.
Mr. Fountain, Tanya Tully here. There's not a garage proposed in this case. However, if there's going to be a deferral, could y'all look at, and I think the issue with the covered walkway from staff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, was just the number and amount of covered walkways over the yard as a whole. I think looking at number 5
right.
and 7 were the issues there.
So it was about lot coverage and the like. All right, Verche Height, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess I was also curious if the proposal starts to violate guideline 1.3.12, in which it is not appropriate to introduce constructed features or objects that are similar in appearance, material, and scale to historic elements, but are stylistically anachronistic with the character of the building or the historic district. So just with the sizing and proportioning of this relative to the existing structure.
All right, good point. Are you all prepared to proceed, or are you inclined to examine this more closely with respect to the other application, or what? Because we don't have a garage here, and I was just wrong about that. John Reese.
Let me throw this in here just as because I appreciate Verche's comment, because I think that's part of the reservation I have. As I understand it, though, grape arbors were not uncommon. At least they were not uncommon in our neighborhood, in the backyards of everybody's house. And I guess my point in bringing that up is this a semantics in terms of what this thing is called and the size of it? Because in terms of it being a covered walkway, I don't see it being covered. I see it being an arbor. And so I'm confused as to exactly what the benefit of it is, the purpose of it, and to Verche's point, its size and scale.
Okay, Mr. LaBelle, can you talk to us about that, and then we'll hear from Tanya as well?
Yes. The main portion of it started with Harry having an issue with some trees falling on his car, so he was no longer able to park in the back. So we started with working with just a space that would not necessarily be roofed, but someplace where he could park his car that would be protected from large limbs. He also has his property is basically at a bowl of a few two-story homes. And so he's kind of got this amphitheater-like thing. So he's trying to get just a little bit of privacy throughout his backyard. So he can sit at the back of his house or in his backyard without necessarily, kind of being at the sight lines of everybody else. So this was our way of covering some of the backyard space without necessarily making it a solid structure and giving him some ability to entertain back there so you can feel more comfortable using his backyard.
Mr. Fountain, thank you to Colette for sleuthing this out. Fact 8 from the prior case, which was the covered walkway to a detached garage, says that the walkway will be constructed in such a way that it could be removed at a later date as an accommodation for the health needs of the current occupant. That was the specific fact on the prior case we were discussing before.
All right. Now, that said, then staff, does that change anything about your recommendations on this particular application?
This is Erin. So we did some research in trying to assess whether this was a congruous request. and found some pergola arbor type structures, mostly in Oakwood, or if they were in Boylan Heights associated with commercial properties. There are not many to be found overall, and certainly not extensive use of them. It's just, one along a side property line, for example. So the staff report is written to give you leeway as the committee to decide whether this is congruous with the district or not. I think my primary concern is simply the massing through the rear yard and the appearance of attached parking areas to the historic structure.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there further questions from members of the committee? Rashay?
Yeah, I also wonder, kind of piggybacking off of that comment, when you start to propose a structure like this that has some attachment, right? Whether it's, even though it's not structural, it's a visual attachment to the house, do we need to then evaluate it in a similar way that we might start to evaluate other cases that we've seen where things are physically attached to the primary character defining structure?
Further questions?
The other question I've got is, and it's relative to the applicant's description of the purpose for this structure being privacy, and is this again, to Vashay's point of being attached to the house, is this basically considered a fifth facade? Because being as large as it is relative to the roof of the house and two-story houses being on either side, it becomes a fifth facade, no?
I see Rashay nodding in the affirmative. Further questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I make one comment?
Please.
This is Raspberry. Since I was quoted from the earlier case, I think it's probably worthwhile to make the point that the precedent of prior decisions by the committee is not legally binding precedent. I think it comes in because the committee is attempting to be extremely conscientious in seeking consistency. So it's not necessary to analyze all the details of the previous case in order to point by point distinguish that holding, if you will, to use a legal term, and your decision in this case. I think it obviously is commendable that you're trying to be as consistent as possible, but it's not legally binding the decision in the prior case. I question whether it could be used to show that your decision was correct or incorrect on appeal, unless it tends to show arbitrariness. So that's all I have to say about that.
Well, it's pretty clear we spent a lot of time on this, and I don't believe it can be said to have been arbitrary, and we've concluded that we're not bound anyway, and B, there were factors, and we were careful in the findings in that other file anyway. So what do you think about the lot coverage, folk, and the and this particular concept as a vehicle for privacy for this property owner? So John, are you trying to speak, or are you muted now?
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's the scale and size of it is actually on par with diminishing the size of the house, and that the coverage is very extensive, and that it is not, it is challenging my understanding of what a pergola is. Even that, and I'm not even going on the sense of a covered walkway. If we were on that realm, that's a very different understanding than even a pergola. I mean, I'm trying to be kind in terms of it, just calling it that, because it becomes a folly in the back of the yard. But this is an extension of the facade, in my opinion.
Well, if that's the case, then it adds what, about 50% to the lot coverage? What do the rest of you think? For discussion. Versailles Heights.
I agree with John's sentiments just about the scale, because there is so much matching, particularly of the bottom of the roof line, and using that as a datum and extruding that outward into the landscape in such a significant fashion. I think that, the way he's describing it is correct.
All right. Comments from the rest of you, Harold or Ian?
I agree on all points. I think the main thing that I was hung up on was the fact that it was the structure was so close to the house, and the size of it, of course.
So are you? Then I hear you all expressing concerns as to whether or not it can be approved in the form that it presently is presented. If that's the case, then I will turn back to the applicants, Mr. LaBelle, Mr. Rebecki. Given the reaction that you're getting from the members of the committee, would you rather that we defer action and you take these comments into account and re-examine this before we make a decision?
I think that would be best. I'm waiting to get a text from Harry, but I think it would be based on what everyone's saying about it. I think there's some things that we can handle a little bit differently. And
all right. I would rather you relook at it than have us turn it down with all the attendant delays and problems that creates for you. So with that said, then I'll entertain a motion to defer action till next month. John Reese makes that motion. There's a second from Ian Dunn. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. I will call on you in turn. Ian Dunn says aye. Harold Millette says aye. I saw the hand of John Reese saying aye in Versailles Heights. So that carries, and that motion is deferred. And it is now 7:10, and we have two more matters to hear. And I'm going to take a 5-minute break right here and allow everybody to run to the refrigerator or the restroom as they prefer. And we'll be right back, 5 minutes. 150-2020. The fact that we're at number 150 indicates that the staff's been busy. For that file, we have Meg McLaurin and Aaron Morton, and I'm going to administer the oath. Do you and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to the members of the committee, no matter being heard, will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Aaron Morton?
I do.
All right. And Meg McLaurin?
I do.
Okay, great. We're all together now. I'll ask Aaron to explain this application.
All right, this is case COA 150-2020 for 416 South Boylan Avenue in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The application is to construct a rear two-story addition, alter the historic addition, construct rear deck, remove driveway, construct rear parking area, alter siding, alter porch columns, alter front door surround, replace roofing, change exterior paint colors, install solar panels, and install lighting. Next. This is a view of 416 South Boylan's front facade. You can see the brick veneer on the front porch. Next. And this is another view, partial view of the front facade where exploratory demo has already been underway on site to determine the deterioration of the original wood siding beneath. Next. This is a view of the north elevation. Next. And working our way down the north side. Right towards the back, you can see a portion of the one-story addition to the rear. Next. This is a view of the full rear facade of the house from the existing rear alley. Next. And this is another view of the rear addition. This particular portion was the second of two additions. Next. And a view of the south facade, working our way back towards the front porch. Next. Staff suggestion is to discuss the following. Proposed alterations to the historic one-story addition, proposed built area increase, evidence for historic siding replacement, proposed solar panel location, and staff suggestion is to defer to allow the applicant to provide built area mass calculations and evidence of window and siding deterioration beyond repair. Next. We've received lots of new information for this case addressing some of the staff comments, including evidence for the location of the original rear addition south wall, existing and proposed built mass calculations, revised roof plan, revised tree protection plan, identification of original siding retention areas. Next. Confirmation of original window retention, landscape lighting location information, removal of solar panels from the request, additional finished details, and revised plans and elevation drawings. Next. And that's all. So I will note that this was an application that would have been required to attend DRAC were it back up and running virtually at the time of application, and that has been waived.
And tell me that again. It has been waived by you folks, you mean?
Yes. So for projects with large additions, that's usually an automatic requirement to attend DRAC. But with COVID, DRAC was not up and running virtually before we received this application. And as a result, we waived the requirement to attend DRAC.
Okay. But in any event, it hasn't been there. Okay. Meg McLaurin, we'd be glad to hear from you and to kind of walk us through what all you changed since the original.
Well, to those of you who may have read through the entire application and all its iterations, please know that I did not make it hopelessly long on purpose, but that from the time of the first submittal in early September, several items have been revealed by the partial demolition we've done of things that we knew were not original. The structure seems to have been most recently several apartments, although it's been vacant for more than 10 years. And the owner is hoping to restore it to a single family usage and is prepared to restore the original main structure and bring it into the 21st century in functionality. The earliest photos that you've seen with the brick veneer were all submitted with the application, with the original application. And since that time, the siding has been taken off, the brick veneer has been taken off, the original door surround and the original front door, or at least I believe it to be the original front door, have all been found intact under other things. Later photos show most of the aluminum siding removed and the damages done to the windows to fit them under the siding. And the most recent group of photos are an argument that the existing outside wall of the single-story portion on the southernmost wall is not the original outside wall. The plans, to me, are a little hard to read because at staff's request, I removed all the interior walls. But what I was trying to do originally was extend the original hip, which meant that the offset from the two-story portion with the gables had to be the same as the offset from the two-story portion had to the front, so that the roof could be continuous, the ridge could continue back. Since it has been requested that I modify that roof so that the original hip roof shows, I did not feel at this point I could modify where the walls were that generated that form to begin with. So although the roof isn't one that I would necessarily propose, just because I think the more roofs, the valleys, and more roof planes you have, the more chance you've got leaks. I'm willing to concede that if to get some of these other issues on the table. The offset on the rear of the proposed two-story section is because we had to jog it. It is an addition. We do have to honor the 5-yard setback. So if you look on the site plans, which are S, or I think they're ES, would mean the existing site plan, and E1, which would be the proposed site plan, or S1. There's the jog in the back that sort of honors the setback. I think the Sanborn maps do show that there's part of the current single-story structure that was original, but I think the southernmost part of that was actually a porch from the interiors that I can see. It's got siding. There was a kitchen extension and a porch. And then that was later extended and enclosed to what the existing single-story structure is now. So because it was not original, I was hoping that we could bring the new foundation wall in to make the roof to me, the roof is a pretty important thing. The original hip isn't necessarily, it is there, and it is a slate roof. It does provide me an opportunity to change my roof material at that hip. Still not my first choice, but I was willing to concede that if that was something that was going to change this application one way or the other. I think I provided the square footages. I'm not sure that's exactly what you wanted, but I did not hear that it wasn't, so I'm assuming that it was. We were adding, really the footprint only added 377 square feet. Plus a 192 square foot deck. So it wasn't a huge increase in the footprint. The original footprint was 1471, and the proposed first floor was 1848 plus the deck, which, as I said, was 192 square feet. So I think we did try to answer all the issues that the staff report had. There are some drawings in there that show exactly where we were going to start and stop the artisan siding, which is the thicker hardy plank. It's essentially going to be on the rear half. Those were later entries, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure exactly what you all are seeing in terms of the application, because we did have so much back and forth. But basically, the hardy plank would only start on the back side, the indentation where we're starting the back portions of the.
So, Meg, so you're talking about, that's where the second story addition over the rebuilt single story is what you're saying?
Yes.
I'm looking at S1.
Okay. S1, you know, I'm out of town on my laptop, so it's hard for me to get all these drawings up.
Well, I can just tell you, it starts at the street with covered porch, existing two-story structure, no changes. And the next rectangle is a second-story addition over an existing rebuilt single-story.
Right.
And then you also showed another piece that is a two-story addition.
Yes, we were trying to extend, because that area that is the two-story addition, we were trying to extend that space to provide a better kitchen and a lot of things. So yes, that hatched area is, I mean, I guess they're all hatched, but the one that's crisscross hatched, that is actually 2 stories and new. So that had to, the reason it's jogged is because it has to honor the setback as an addition.
Right. I got that. Okay. Are there questions from Meg McLaurin, from members of the committee? Harold Millett?
Yes, I just had a question. I can't remember if you addressed this earlier, but are the railings just not shown in the drawings, or are we to assume that they also have been removed?
Well, the planters are high enough. There are brick planters on the front, and they are high enough that I do not think there needs to be railing. The owner would like to keep those planters. They're a pretty significant chunk of masonry. And I think because they're deep enough that we won't require an additional railing on the front. And I assume that's where you're talking about, on the front. Whereas we have shown the railing on the back, on the steps and things.
Yeah, my question was about the front.
Yeah. I think those planters are deep enough, and they're probably 18 inches to 21 inches tall on the inside of the porch. I'm hoping we don't have to add railing to that.
Other questions from other members of the committee? Ian Dunn?
Do you plan to keep the existing front porch surface?
Well, for now, it's easier to just fill in that little bit. I don't know if you've seen the photographs where the the brick veneer was put on, and then the front porch was poured to that. I think it's going to be easier to fill in that little bit, flash the siding really well, than to unsurface that whole area. So, yes, we were actually going to leave that. Unless that becomes a condition of something. I don't know what's under there, to tell you the truth. I don't know. Most porches in that area were wood, but I don't know if this is poured on top of wood or on top of concrete or what. But it's a broken tile.
This is Aaron. I just wanted, Tanya, if I'm incorrect, let me know, but it's my understanding that we can't require any existing material be removed. It's only our proposed with the work description.
Right.
I also wanted to add, in terms of the built area and built mass questions, it wasn't fully vetted in the new information, so I went ahead and took the liberty of calculating that out separately. So we clearly had area and mass, including the driveways. If you'd like that information, I can provide it.
Well, I would like that information, because I'm certainly concerned that with the amount of lot coverage as this thing steps back and back and back to where there's just about nothing left.
Sure. So the calculations that I took were based off of Meg's drawings showing existing and proposed conditions. So just a reminder to the committee that the built area and mass are considered from the original structure and site to the proposed structure and site. So the existing house as it stands, as far as we're able to tell, is an original 2-story house with a front porch and an early addition, and then a later addition that appears to fall outside the period of significance based on the Sanborn maps. Likely updated work when the brick veneer went on the front and the brick planters were added. So that portion is not included in the original calculations. But in terms of the original built area, I was able to calculate roughly 2,676 square feet, or 43% lot coverage. And that includes an extensive existing driveway that runs across the full site, almost 900 square feet. And then the proposed built area would increase that to a total of 51%. For a percentage increase of 8%. The built mass for the original house, we calculated 42%, and the proposed mass is 57% for an increase of 16%.
And Aaron, help me here. So you did the calculation. Again, I'm keeping my eye on this S1 drawing, which had the existing 2-story structure with no changes the way Meg wrote it. And after that is a 2nd-story addition over an existing rebuilt 1-story. And if that's the section that you're saying that 1-story addition was not in the period of significance. Am I right?
So there are two.
I think she might have said that, but I don't think that was right. I think she did not mean to say that. There was the part that's hatched. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
go ahead, Mike.
I kind of noticed that being said, and was thinking it might have been said incorrectly. That the part on S1 that is hatched with backward slashes, the one that backs up to the existing 2-story, that is primarily shown on, not all of it, but some of it is shown on the Sanborn maps. The other part that you see that's got a black line around it that sticks out is the later 1-story addition.
Right.
Not part of the original.
And that's what overlaps the crosshatch addition that
Yeah,
you're
it
showing.
overlaps that. Yes, you're right. It overlaps
Okay,
that.
I think I understand. Now, Aaron, you want to explain again what you calculated?
Sure, and I apologize if the language I used was unclear. So the way that I've reviewed the breakdown is that there is an early one-story rear addition and then a later one-story rear addition onto that early addition. So the early addition is counted in the original built area and built mass calculations that I've provided.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry to interrupt again. I guess I think that piece that you're calling the first edition, I think that was actually there. I think that was part of the original structure.
But it doesn't matter, Meg, because she's counting it as the original anyway.
Okay. Well, if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. But I think that there was actually a single story piece originally on there.
Okay. All right. So then, Aaron, then what you did was calculate what we see as existing two-story and the single-story addition, and then you calculated everything beyond that to get your numbers now. Is that right, Aaron?
That's correct. So that initial one-story portion is considered part of the original calculations. Whether it was original or early, it's historic.
Either way, it is counted for this purpose.
But are you saying that something that's there is not part of the? You cannot count something that's actually existing as part of the original.
So Meg, it depends on whether that piece of the structure existed during the period of significance of the historic district, is the first measurement. And it appears that the sort of second rearmost smaller room where you can see the current exterior rear porch, that was not constructed prior to or within the period of significance, but was constructed at a later date. And
well, let me ask you
we don't calculate the existing versus proposed. We try to calculate the original versus proposed.
Okay, and I'm not clear where that is stated in the guidelines. I guess maybe that's, or in the instructions for filling out an application. Because I have to confess, I've done a lot of these applications over the years, and I just don't remember that.
Tanya Tully here, Meg. That is a change that happened with an update to the guidelines in 2017. The word original was added to the built area and built mass portions in the various sections of the guidelines in order to avoid addition creep over time.
Okay.
And we're working on getting better explanation to folks as we move forward. We just haven't found the right words yet.
Okay. Well, I guess, like I said, part of this is it's kind of new to me. I just didn't, never have had to provide that before, and I didn't know how you end up going to, do you have to go to a specific Sanborn map to find the year that, I mean, I know you can find them online, so are you looking for a certain year in Boylan Heights and a certain year in Oakwood and a certain year some other places to determine that?
Tanya here. Each district does have its own period of significance from the, for where that cutoff period is. In Boylan Heights, it's, I think, it's 1938, I think. I'd have to look it up. The Sanborn maps aren't always super helpful, so it's based on a combination of using the Sanborn fire insurance maps and also, professional judgment by the architect or staff if we're needed to help make that determination.
All right, well, let's get back to questions here from members of the committee. and to see where we are and what the reaction is. We've talked, John Reese, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, Meg, you'd mentioned that you were only adding like 300 and something square feet to this project. It looks so much larger than that.
Well, wait a minute. That was on the first floor.
Okay.
And that was not going back to the original. That was going back to existing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my figures, because I didn't hear that they weren't what you were looking for. That's why, really on the first floor, we only have an additional 377 square feet. Now, I have been told that, well, first of all, let me ask you if a deck is part of that calculation.
This is Erin. The deck would be a part of the built area calculation. The built mass only applies to structures with roofs or over environment.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Other questions from members of the committee? John Reese, did you get everything you wanted?
Yeah, I do have one other question. And I'm assuming right now that because I read in the application, the solar panels are not going on. They've been deleted. Right. Okay.
Right.
And do we as a quasi-judicial body have influence in terms of proportion of windows and that kind of thing? Staff question. Reason I asked the question is I'm looking at the which elevation? A5, south elevation, and this happens a great many times on a lot of additions to existing historic houses like this, to where I see horizontal window proportions when clearly that is not a historical reference, because every window in this house, most every window in most of these houses, are on a vertical proportion basis. Just a question.
So this is Erin. You are able to comment and make conditions on the proportions of the windows in the addition. I believe there's an existing condition right now for approval of window and door specifications. But that would not address the elevation appearance of the window, rather the profiles.
So if we do have commentary on that, how do we include it if it wasn't something that was?
Well, you would add a condition that the windows on the south elevation have vertical proportion, if that's what's needed.
Okay.
All right, are there other questions from members of the committee? Verche?
I think along similar lines, and I don't know if this is a part of our upcoming discussion, but in looking at the elevation, assuming that like you said, the character defining portions, the one-story addition is included in that, there's this mirroring of that sort of roof line from the front to the back of the house, which does not occur after the addition. So I think, I don't know, I guess I wonder if that's worth discussing, I guess, in the next portion of this or not, but, or if we, again, that I don't know what part is by design or by not.
Can you repeat that? It's so hard for me to find the drawings that you're referring to, so.
So I'm just kind of comparing the similar drawings, AE5 and then your A5, and looking at the roof lines of the single-story portion or the porch area that faces the street, and how that roof line is mirrored on the backside of the house over the single-story portion. And then, but in your addition, that roof line is not revisited in any way in any part of your design.
Okay. Are there other questions as to where we are? Anything else from Meg? Anything else from you?
Well, Is there a, for what you determine to be a mass, back to this mass question, because I think mass is certainly one of the things that has been an issue, like how much of this, is there a cutoff for what is acceptable in terms of a mass increase? And the reason I'm asking that,
I don't think we have an arbitrary number,
okay.
Meg. It's we're trying to be consistent, but there's an element of subjectivity that can't be avoided in looking at different lots and different designs.
Okay. Well, I can remove a certain portion of the back. I don't want to because it doesn't work as well, but if there's a 9 by 12 piece that is attached to the deck that would probably become deck in the absence of that, and if that would make the difference in the mass, I would be willing to forego that piece right now.
Well, thanks for that information. Let us have some discussion here. Is anything else, Aaron, that you want to say?
Yes, I just wanted to add that the deck doesn't have a roof, so it would not be a part of the mass, just the area. And usually we see applications pretty frequently that go up to about 50% of the lot. We have seen a handful approved right up to around 60. I don't think we've seen anything bigger than that in recent applications anyway that I'm aware of. So the 50 to 60% is not unusual, but discussed.
Well, I think that has to do with the size of the lot to begin with, though, also, and that's why it's hard to draw a hard and fast rule.
Correct.
Then, Vershey, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that I heard this correctly. I know that there was a staff comment about the addition roof being inset from the historic roof, and maybe that has been revised. I just wanted to confirm that it has, or has it?
I don't know if I'm this conversation, but as far as I'm concerned, it has been resolved.
Tanya Tully here. I can confirm that the new drawings provided by the applicant do show the inset and make the character defining roof clear.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, well, let's turn to discussion internally and see what you all think here. I can tell you I'm concerned about the amount of the lot coverage, counting all of it together. I could certainly understand some of an additional deck, a larger deck, but I'm concerned with all the bits and pieces that are portrayed here. So I'm troubled by that, whether it's at 52%, 51%, 48%, whatever it is. It's an awful lot of this particular lot, it seems to me. But those are my comments. I don't usually butt in like that, but I want to see what the rest of you think. And I certainly count on the rest of you to assess this roofline issue better than I can. Further discussion.
I agree with you 100%, Nick, in terms of the kind of coverage of the site. It's almost that there's not much of that left. And we were in the previous discussion, we were talking about an attached garage. I think this solution basically creates an attached garage just by pushing itself so far to the back that the driveway is almost connected to it. The other issue I'd like to bring up is Versailles' comments about the roof mirroring. I think that has some very valuable questioning there, and I'm beginning to understand, Meg, why you did what you did, because of the step back of the site where you've got to stay within the boundaries of the setback. But part of the original design was about bringing that roof in like it does in the front or on the various sides, rather than kind of stretching itself all the way across the back of the facade. And or there's a hip condition so that the roof begins to resolve itself in some regards, so that it's more congruent with the front facade as was done in the original. So I've got some questions about that. And then again, I'm going back to the proportions of the windows and doors and things like that. And then finally, something that's not been brought up is, because we had this question on the Boylan Heights Montford House, and that is the use of we didn't talk about the columns or anything on the front, because it says that you're going to be using composite columns. I know that they have to be replaced because of the wrought iron ones that are there now, but is there any evidence that the design of those columns are what was originally there? Is there any understanding of that?
Are you asking me? Am I?
Well, I guess I should have done that before now, but I guess I can't. I guess that I've got that question.
I did, John, I did not ever close the public hearing.
Oh, good. Yes. So yes. Hey,
yes. Okay. Well, I will say that I did ask Historics RHDC if they had any evidence of any photos of this house before it was butchered. So, you know, it had brick veneer. It's over its setbacks big time. It had aluminum siding. It had so much that I had no idea what it was. The house right next door to it on the north does have double columns, double round columns. The house next to it on the south side has square, blocky, almost craftsman style columns. So, and there is a variety of columns in Boylan Heights.
Yeah.
But I did ask if there was if they had anything down there. And of course, we can't get into archives. So I tried.
We checked our physical files, and we only have photos back to what seemed to be the 90s.
Really? Wow.
Unfortunately.
Wow. Okay. Well,
it hasn't been worked on for at least 50, 60 years. So it hasn't been a subject of the RHDC. So that's probably why they don't have them.
Right. Well, then, other than that, other than the question about the columns, like I said, my issues are understanding a better resolution of the roof in the back, because it does so much setback that the roof becomes this kind of
well, one of those setbacks is a single story roof, you know.
Yes, I understand. I'm looking at the elevation on A4 and the elevation on A5, and I'm looking at, you know, the little step down that you've got going there, and I understand from the plan that that's because the building has to step back because of the.
Tanya Tully here. I just want to jump in real quick while you're talking about setbacks.
Yeah.
That, if it is shown, if a certificate of appropriateness is approved for, you know, an addition or new construction, and it's shown that it is in, you know, in character with the historic district and in keeping with the design guidelines, then the setbacks do not have to be adhered to strictly. Getting the COA will, for lack of a better word, trump the underlying setbacks. Now, that will not affect any building or fire code construction issues, but I just wanted to remind y'all of that. So when folks can stay within the existing setback, that's wonderful, but it's one of the benefits of being in the historic district is being able to go within them if it meets the design guidelines without having to go to the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you for that, Tanya. That makes a lot of sense. In normal situations, I would say no, 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 because I think setbacks are there for a reason. But I will make the comment that when I'm looking at S1 and the double crosshatch that you've got, Meg, there, that's in that little sliver that's trying to just adjust itself to the setback, it seems that if we were allowing you to kind of come out beyond that and line up with that existing piece, a lot of roof problems and things and jitteriness of the roof could be solved.
I'm willing to do that. I did not know that it would do it, that you could trump it on an addition, and that is clearly an addition.
Yeah.
So if you can, I know you can trump it on the existings, but if you're saying, Tanya, that you could trump it.
Yes. If you get a COA, you may go into the setback.
See, I would be in favor of that because I think that one, believe it or not, on that two-story addition or that two-story section, that one little override of that setback would solve a lot of the massing issues that I have with this addition in the back.
Well, as I said, I did it to honor the setback because
right. No, I get it.
Addition on the first floor as well as the second floor. So
yeah, I get it. But see, when you look at this, you look at R1B, then the gable, instead of having that jog in the back there, you could go straight back.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to, that'll only give us more
I don't know
space.
I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks of that, but I would be in favor of making that adjustment just to kind of solve some of the massing issues with the addition.
My view is that I would love to clean it up some, and but fundamentally I think it needs to come back some on the massing. Is where I am, and so I want to hear what the rest of you think. And it sounds like we're getting this feedback, and we may defer it to allow another look. Anyway, Vershay, what did you have to comment?
I think along those lines, I'm having a similar reaction to the massing that you are, Nick. But I was also curious as I look through all of the paperwork. I don't see where any trees or, are documented in the backyard and in the addition space, even with regard to like a tree protection plan or things like that. So I think seeing that information will also give us.
I don't think there are any significant trees in the back. It's all pretty much scrub. Now there is a huge oak in the front that is on the neighboring property.
Okay, so there are no trees in the back.
No, there really aren't.
Okay, that's good.
Pretty much scrub back there.
Okay.
Ian Dunn, anything from you?
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Okay, anything, Harold?
No, I would agree with John's proposal of fixing the roof situation, but no, anything that hasn't been done.
So, Vershay, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to add, as far as the discussion about scale, and looking at guideline 3.2.7 to limit the size and scale of addition in relationship to the historic building so that it does not diminish or visually overpower the building. I kind of acknowledge that that's been done from the street elevation, but, I don't think that that's been successful in the long elevation or in the side elevations.
Okay, that's a good point. All right. So my inclination then, folks, is to entertain a motion to defer and let Meg have the benefit of all this discussion and get back to us when she's ready. So Meg, there's concern about the massing. There's concern about the clutter in the roof. The invasion of the setback may be helpful. And so all those things are useful things to plug in here, I think. Anything else from members of the committee? Can I have that motion? John Reese makes a motion to defer. Second by Verche Height. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the roll then. All in favor, John Reese votes aye. Verche Height, aye. Ian Dunn, aye. And Harold Millett, aye. And I vote aye as well. So the matter is deferred, and we move to the remaining matter for consideration tonight, which is number 151-2020, 426 South Person Street. And for that matter is Mr. Andrew Osterlin and Colette Canane, and I'll administer those to both of you. You and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to the members of the committee, the matter being heard to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Colette?
I do.
Andrew?
I do.
Thank you for that. And Colette, will you explain this application?
Tanya, will you go back one slide, please? Thank you. So this is case COA 0151-2020 for 426 South Person Street. It is in the Prince Hall Historic District, which is a general HOD, and the request is to alter the roof structure, install a skylight system, replace door, remove storm door, replace window, remove rear window, and remove a flue pipe. Next slide. So this is a view of the property from across South Person Street. The structure that we're talking about, so it's one building, but the portion that we're talking about is to the left. It's two differently addressed structures. So 426 is the one to the, what is the south here? Next slide. So this is another view from across South Person, trying to eliminate what the tree was covering there. Next slide. This is a view of the south wall, which is going to be the most prominently visible space for the alterations. Next slide. On my site visit in the vacant lot next to it, I noticed that there was kind of a higher point in the middle. So this photograph is from there to show what is visible of the roof. Next slide. And this is the west wall or the rear structure. Next slide. Staff's recommendation is to discuss the proposed skylight system and whether or not it compromises the character of the historic district, and pending the results of that discussion, approved with conditions. I would also like to add that the applicant, as listed on the application on the agenda, has since left the company. So the speaker and applicant for tonight is another representative from the company.
I'm sorry, the person we swore in is not the one that's going to be talking?
Correct. The applicant who submitted no longer works for the company that has the project.
It's not the owner, it's the designer you're talking about.
Correct.
This is Andy, and I was sworn in. I'm the owner of the architecture company, and I'll be speaking for the project.
So Mr. Lopez is gone, or Mrs. Lopez is gone.
Correct. That's
correct. Right. Ms. Lopez, yeah.
All right, that's fine. I'm fine to hear from Mr. Osterlin at this point and talk to us about the particularly about the skylight.
Right. Thank you. So this is a very small commercial building on South Person Street, and we have a new tenant going in, which we expect to be kind of a high traffic tenant, even though it's a small space. So our project here was to, in addition to the interiors, we wanted to put in new new window and door that would serve the commercial use that would be suitable for high traffic use. And then also because it's a small, dark building, we wanted to do a skylight system on the roof. The roof is so small that we could essentially remove that flat membrane roof and install a skylight to replace the roof. The roof, as we submitted it, was an aluminum frame, stick-built roof. I need to say that the costs for that came in very high, so we will be looking at a cowl wall system instead. I'm sure that architects would be familiar with that, but it's a more consistent color. You wouldn't actually see the glass; you would see this flat, translucent white, which we think is actually pretty similar to that white membrane roof that's there now. So we don't believe that it would stand out in appearance. We think it would significantly improve the interior, and we're excited about seeing this building activated.
All right, thank you for that. Are there questions from members of the committee? John Reese?
Two questions. One, with a channel glass system, are you required to keep the steel truss or the little trusses in there?
No, we're not.
So they would go away?
Correct, yes.
Second question. There's no elevation of what you show with a door and a window, but you do not show an elevation of what the revised elevation would be on the street. And from the way you described it, it sounded like that might be a serving window as well.
Yes, that's our intent.
So, I have some reservations in just saying yes, or just being in agreement with all of this without having that elevation. And I really do question.
We did submit it.
All I see is all I've got is a door and a window, no elevation. Is that somewhere that I don't know? Oh, wait, I see. Never mind. Got it. My bad. Is there a counter? Is there a counter then with that? And I'm assuming that window's a slider. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a counter that's not shown here or something?
There is an interior counter. There's no exterior counter.
Okay. Is there signage going to be put on this building?
We would anticipate signage in the same location as the barbershop signage.
And a question for staff, is that something that I know we dealt with that with Boylan Heights. Is that something that we deal with here?
This is Colette. The majority of signage-related applications can be approved as a minor role. However, if you would like to add a condition in this case, it could be a condition of approval that the sign be submitted, but it could go either way.
Okay. Another question is, what is the historical history of, what is the history of this building? What was it before?
It was previous use was a barbershop. That seems to go back pretty much.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I've got. I've got some major concerns about taking out the structure on the inside because I think that's part of but again, that may be an interior thing, not an exterior thing that we don't have any jurisdiction over. But that's a significant change when you go from a truss system with a glass roof over that versus a channel glass system which doesn't have that structure.
We have one photo of the interior.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
the photo, right.
It's kind of, I don't believe they're original, actually.
What held the roof up? Do you know what held the roof up? And when you say it's not original.
Well, okay, I take that back. The photo you're looking at has new ceiling joists. They're obviously new, but yeah, the original 2x10s are up there.
Okay, but those would have to come out, right?
Our design right now is for them to be removed, yes.
Yeah. I'd like to see more information about this because obviously you've changed the type of skylight scenario versus, because channel glass is a very different scenario than what this is. And so I know that the other, like Nick and other people on the committee who are not architects may have some visual misunderstandings based on what's been shown. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I do have questions because I was looking at your A7 and trying to decide which of these examples might be somewhere close. I was assuming it's that roof system example 3, but that made me wonder on the south elevation, what are you going to have a parapet or something there that's going to make it so that nobody's ever going to know from the outside what's up there anyway? I just couldn't tell.
We're not building a new parapet. The existing, the new skylight would replace the existing roof completely. The intent is that it's the same slope, that it goes to the same gutter that's there, and the existing parapets would remain. So it's a shed roof. It's just a shed roof toward that empty lot on the south.
Right. So that I'm looking at that south elevation. I understand what you got. The front's different. And I'm not thinking about that. So I'm just thinking about what's this going to look like from the side, since the thing is right in the street almost anyway. Very visible from the south elevation, and particularly since that's where all the parking's going to be right there anyhow, and on the rest of your property. So.
If I can clarify that, Mr. Fountain, the property, this is a tiny lot. The property is that half of the building. That's it. So the property line is at the edge of the building. So the property to the south happens to have the same owner, but it's a distinct property.
Okay.
Does that mean it's got a 0 lot line build to on the other property, and it can be built up right next to this building?
Yes, sir.
So how does the drainage work in that scenario?
That would assume if a new building, Tanya Tully here. A 0 lot line would assume that a COA is obtained for a new structure that allows it to build up. The underlying setbacks can either be more strict or more lenient, depending on the way it goes.
Does the current gutter that's there now would it have to go into an easement to the lot line, to the lot next door? Is the wall to the lot line, or is the gutter to the lot line?
I believe the gutter overlaps the boundary line.
Okay.
I'm taking my survey here.
So that's an encroachment.
Yep. And also, one other question. Because you said this was going to have a serving window on the street facade on the sidewalk level,
yes.
Are you not at some point in time going to put a canopy over that so people don't get wet? I'm just wondering, is there other stuff that's coming down the pike beyond just doing these things that you're doing now?
Right. Thank you, John. You're looking ahead, but we are not proposing a canopy. The only thing you mentioned that I'm sure we will do is the signage.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm looking at the survey, and to clarify, it looks like there are a few inches. There's a few inches between the side of the building to the property line. So I believe the gutter is within. I don't believe it encroaches.
All right.
I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at the existing photographs you guys have, and it's showing, looks like an air conditioning unit sitting on top of the structure, the roof structure. I didn't see, what are the plans for the HVAC unit in this building, or?
Yes, we are we are replacing that small unit with one that's slightly larger. Again, this is a very small building. It's 400 square feet, so it won't be much larger than that, if at all.
Other further questions? Rashay Height.
I might have just missed this. So I understand that you're replacing it, but where are you going to locate it? Is it still going to be on the roof somewhere?
The same location.
That was also one of staff's suggested conditions, should you approve it.
There was a comment about the flue. So we're not planning to change the south elevation at all, except for that what you would see on the roof. The flue, if there was one, it's not there anymore. We would leave that circle on the elevation, and our drawing shows that.
And what happens to the window at the back?
Well, that's one where I wish there was an option. We want that window. Right now it's plywood. There's no window there. I can't put a new window in because the property line is 1 foot away. So, so as I understand it, unless you can talk the fire marshal out of it.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, I think I have to block it up.
I will, if you want, Mr. Osterlin, if you want to send an email to staff afterwards, it may be outside of the budget because I have no idea how much it cost, but some windows were approved on a building in Moore Square within that. Anyway, it was some special window that actually acts as a wall or something. I'd be happy to share that with you, but email all three of us.
I couldn't find it. Sorry. That'd be great.
I'm sorry. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I just said I appreciate that recommendation, and I'll do that.
Yeah, I think that it would require a fire shutter if you were to be able to keep it, which is, a pricey thing. But then it begs the question is, but what happens with the refrigeration lines that are right now on the outside of the building?
We have a 1 foot. We have 1 foot to the property line.
Okay. Got it.
Those lines fit in.
Got it. Okay.
Other questions? Rashay?
Sorry, again, just for clarity, could you state the name of the revised system that you intend to use for the skylight?
We're saying Calwall, Kalwall. Calwall.
Oh, Calwall. Oh.
It's not glass, right? Because John was describing it as channel glass.
Yeah, I heard channel glass. I thought, wow, you got a good deal on channel glass if you could use that instead of what you were using before. So I didn't know it was, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Okay, then I definitely think we should defer this until next time because Calwall is a very different scenario than the channel glass I was describing.
Okay, Ian Dunn, did you have something?
This might have been addressed, and it's John had some reservations about those truss beams being removed.
Yep.
And this is a question for staff, I guess. Do we have any say over that since it's technically inside?
No.
Okay.
With the new Calwall system, we may be able to keep them.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to defer, and we'll see what we get next month. Frankly, folks, my concern here is that we've deferred a lot of stuff, and that gives us a chance to do some of these things more than once. And I'm not sure that's in our own self-interest. But regardless, we're going to need to see this, and so there's not really any choice about that. So John Reese makes a motion to defer to give the applicant time to consider the various comments. I need a second to that motion, and Harold Millett makes the second to the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. John Reese says aye. Rashay Heights says aye. Harold Millett says aye. And Ian Dunn says aye. And I will do the same. And so we have deferred that matter until next month. The other things don't have to be heard. And so is there other business to come before the committee? Staff, is there anything else we need to be talking about?
Well, yes, sir. Tanya Tully here. So I am going to propose an additional December COA date because we already, before tonight, had 13 cases on the agenda for December 9th. So the ideal scenario, so I am going to do a couple things. One, talk with staff from RTN to find out when they are available. And then when, oh yeah, and that Colette says, and that's before the deadline. The deadline is not until tomorrow. So I think we are going to need 2 of them. So after I know when RTN is available, I will email with potential dates so we can get this knocked out.
Well, I'll say this, as you look at it, Tanya, I will be away from the 7th to the 10th, well, from the 3rd to the 10th. And so I would love it if we could just get 2 days back to back, like the 14th and 15th, or the 11th and 14th, or whatever. But I know there are a lot of things to be thought through.
Well, the meeting has already been advertised and scheduled for December 9th. That will not be changing. That is what our deadline's on. It will be the timing of the second continuation of the meeting that we have flexibility on.
Okay. All right. So, and the point of this is that we try to do this December meeting, and because we don't have a COA meeting on Thanksgiving Day. And so every year it backs up into this big pile of applications at this December meeting.
It hasn't been that bad until this year. Fine.
I remember we've had plenty. Okay, anything else? All right, then I will say that it seems to me that house we had with all that issue about the covered walkway and the attached or unattached garage, etc. The backstory was that the husband in that particular process seemed like he had Lou Gehrig's disease or something. And so we can't take that into account, but we were under considerable pressure. And so that, but we were doing everything we could so that was not a quick precedent. And so that, therefore, all that discussion we just had. So anyway, thanks everybody.
Yeah, Tanya here, one last thing. I just want to say great job, everybody, tonight. I think I heard a lot more good guide speak and referring to the guidelines and everybody talking. And I'm glad y'all are making the hard decisions and I don't have to.
Okay. All right. Well, the next decision is what do we get for dinner? So good luck. Good luck there. Wherever you are, I hope your kitchen's not closed. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye now.